The Road Home by Penstroke. Chapter 9. A New Direction.
Morning, Applejack!
Applejack reached the foot of the Crystal Palace steps. Though she was not proud of how she stormed off the previous day, it had helped her calm down. Apple bucking would always be one of her favorite ways to vent frustration. That was still a productive use of her time. Still, all that was behind her, and she gave a smile to Pinkie Pie, who was standing halfway up the steps and blocking a baking tray.
Mortal, Blakey. What are you doing here so early?
Want you to try one of these?
Pinkie said, lowering the baking sheet enough to reveal its contents. Laid out in 3 near-perfect rows of 4 were 12 apple dainties. They were a beautiful sight to Applejack. The smell was dancing in her nose, a sweet mixture of apple and cinnamon. Oh, she knew these dainties well. It was Pinkie's secret recipe, whereas she had prepared the bread part of a dainis like a cinnamon roll. It was a treat for almost all the senses. The warm, soft bread, the sweet smells, the beautiful swirl, and the delectable taste. If the dainties could only serenade the ears, then no sense would go unused. They look amazing, Pinkie. Better than usual. Applejack said as he picked one up from the tray and took a bite. A shiver ran down her spine, so she instinctively licked her lips to catch any fleeting crumb. Wow!
I know!
Pinkie said with a hop, though she was careful not to jostle the baked goods.
These are the best cinnamon swirl apple dainties I've ever made. That new oven is amazing.
The cake's got a new oven? I'll not hear anything about that.
Applejack said, before letting her mouth once more enjoy the apple-tastic party flavor that was the dainis. Pinkie Pie giggled, before turning and heading up the steps.
It's not the cakes,
she said in a sing-song manner. Applejack arched an eyebrow, but had another chomp of her dainis before setting what little remained on the brim of her hat. Then she followed Pinkie, who was climbing up the interior spiraling staircase, with the baking sheet perfectly balanced on her back.
Oh, well, who got a new oven? I'll bet they asked you to help them try it out.
Applejack said. She paused a moment, removing and taking another bite from her dainis. She then replaced it back on the rim of her hat and tried to catch up with Pinkie Pie.
Look, guys, it's Rarity. She likes getting those new fancy gizmos for her kitchen, even though she hardly uses them. Give it a second, Applejack, it'll come to you.
Pinkie Pie giggled and shook her head.
Okay, then, who would that be?
Applejack asked herself.
Was it Candy Dandy, the owner of the candy shop? He's always talking about getting some new fancy oven for the front of his shop so ponies can make their own candy.
Nope.
The pair reached the top of the stairs, began walking the halls of the palace, part of the pseudo-crystal treehouse. Applejack's brow furrowed as she looked to the door floor as her mind tried to guess for an answer.
Okay, they had to have been Bon Bon. I saw her getting a new slew of pots of paints next week. New pots of paints for the new oven, right?
You're right! Pinkie cheered. They giggled. Or at least half right. Bon Bon did get a new oven, but I didn't use her oven to bake these delicious dainties.
Alright, then, I'll give up. Whose oven did you use?
The castles!
Pinkie Pie turned, heading through a doorway in one of the rooms adjacent to the corridor. It was a room Applejack knew too well. The previous evening, her night shift crew had wasted their time taking out a wall in what was supposed to be just a sitting room. The room itself had largely empty the last time she saw it.
It was not empty anymore.
In fact, the room looked finished. It was a kitchen, fully furnished and carrying the smell of dainties. It was of the same style and the size of the Canterlot's kitchen. There were 3 industrial ovens, and some crystal walls had been growing in the corner and fixed with the necessary machinery to create a walk-in fridge. Pinkie Pie was beaming as he set the cookie sheet of dainties down a counter and looked back at Applejack.
Isn't it wonderful? With this kitchen, we'll never have to worry about food in any parties we throw, even if we fill the ballroom with ponies. And look at the ovens, they're crystal ovens. We grease them with that silly sticky paint like everything else, and they work so well. It hardly takes them any time at all to warm up. I mean, you tasted the dainties.
It was you,
Applejack said, her pleasant moon withering like an apple being sucked dry by a vampire fruit bat.
You were the one that pulled the night shift off what they were supposed to be doing.
She took the last piece of dainis from the brim of her hat, staring at it for a moment before glaring back at Pinkie Pie.
You made these to burn me up, didn't you?
No, I made them to swing you up.
Pinky giggled at her own joke, but her laughter died quickly as she saw the furrowed brow growing on Applejack's face.
I mean, we were going to have to do this part of the castle anyway. I just had your volunteers work on it sooner rather than later. And come on, a super fun kitchen like this for starting parties is a fun way better than a sitting room.
Pinky, you just...
Applejack grunted in frustration.
That doesn't make it okay!
She threw the last of her things on the ground, like the bribery it was, turned and stormed out of the room. One fell swoop, her frustration had returned. She needed to go someplace else before she did something she'd regret. With a sigh of exhaustion, Flash delivered the last of his comrades to the top of the cliff, then landed, nearly collapsing on his own hose. He finally gave in and allowed himself to sit like the others as they all rested in the slowly glowing light of dawn. They had all been up at night in a panic, working feverishly to ensure whether or not they had bad news to report back to the Crystal Empire. After finding the diamond dog holes, they began searching the nearby area. They checked forest trails, tracks, and Flash did an aerial sweep. That was when he saw it. The red royal carrots at the bottom of a tall cliff. The four ponies spent all night, working under the light of crystals and Luna's moon to search the wreckage. They overturned every piece of crystal and shattered remains of the furniture. They found a broken pair of glasses and a few stray playing cards. They found tufts of diamond dog hair. Yet the thing they had hoped not to find, but searched diligently for, were the ponies and dragon they, as guards, were sworn to protect. Thankfully, they could find no bodies amongst the mangled train car.
We should go check on the train and then try to get a few hours of sleep.
Jim tried to pull himself back to his hopes, but ended up back where he started, sitting on the ground with his head turned skyward.
The train's right here, Jim shield. We moved it closer when we found the wreckage,
Lapis said, lying on his side, but it managed enough energy to point at the small crystal engine that was sitting a few dozen feet away.
You were the one that suggested it. I'm sorry I don't recall everything I said after working for dusk till dawn, moving heavy crystal, and worrying that I'd find one of our princesses squalls like a bug. Easy, Jim. We're all tired,
Flash said, managing to get back to his hooves.
But we're guard ponies. We've pulled all-nighters before. We will survive. But you're right. Let's catch a few weeks before we get back to our search.
He said mostly for himself. While the others could take turns dozing in the train car, he had to keep airborne. He wouldn't be able to fit to fly safely without at least a few hours of sleep. Arctic groaned as he rubbed his eye.
I hate trying to sleep during the day. All I end up doing is just lying here, staring at the back of my eyelids, never actually getting any sleep.
He sat up from the dirt, padding out to the side of his coat before forcing himself to stand. Morning breeze flew through the croup, a cool relief after an evening of hard labor. Yet as the wind gusted, Arctic turned his face and ears towards the horizon.
Did any of you hear that?
Flash, Lapis, and Gem turned, looking to their comrade, who was now standing at the very edge of the cliff. His ears were forward, and he was hardly breathing as he looked towards the horizon. Flash strained his own ears, but couldn't hear anything except the occasional rustle of trees when the wind gusted. From the looks of Lapis and Gem's faces, they couldn't hear anything either.
There it was again!
Arctic raised up onto his bedclothes, trying to raise his ears higher, looking like a meerkat in the process.
I think I heard the great and honorable Spike's voice!
Flash took to his wings, hovering a few yards in the air, while Lapis and Gem moved up beside Arctic. They all turned their ears forward, trying to hear what he did. Yet, the forest only gave its audience its usual sympathy. The birds chirped, the trees rustled. Everything with the world seemed right. Even the sunrise was picture perfect, worthy of being captured by a painter or photographer. Warm light in the east, and the trees casting long shadows against one another, as if trying to harbor the last moments of night from burning away.
What was that?
Jim pointed his hoof, and the other three focused their vision in that direction.
What did you see? I don't know. That's why I asked what was that?
Jim snapped, though he was now starting to trot along the edge of the cliff, trying to change his perspective on the forest below them.
But I thought I saw a flash.
Or maybe I just blinked. I just don't know.
Wait, I just saw it too.
Arctic claimed, the energy in the group returning despite their exhaustion.
A green flash of light? Yeah, yeah! Jim nodded his head, then snapped his ears forward. And I just heard something. It was a scream. Definitely a scream. High-pitched, like a filly. Probably 5 centuries. Ow! The 4 guards were now moving together along the edge of the cliff, slowly accelerating to a steady gallop as they kept their eyes on the forest. Do you think it's them? Princess Twilight does have her daughter with her. But none of them have green magic, Gemsail said. What illuminated that green flash of light? It wasn't the right color for Spike's dragonfire. I know one thing that could have done it. Flash swooped down and picked Arden by his shoulders. He then began gliding along the cliff face. Lapis, Gem, keep running along up here. I'll come back to get you in a second. But we need to move on this now, stallions. The royal family may be being pursued by something dangerous, and I can only think of one thing, a threat that uses green magic. The other guards nodded in agreement, feeling their hosts gain speed as urgency filled their chests. Organize things for us, Applejack. Only you can do it, Applejack. Help us even though we keep doing things to make your job harder, Applejack! She grumbled and cursed, threatening her frustration with her hat pushed down over her eyes, her chin resting on the picnic table. She had walked to one of Ponyville's less often populated parks, and went to a picnic table she knew was rarely used. It was tucked away, quiet, and a good place for her to stew. The project had turned into a larger headache than she could have guessed, even with Discord off to keep Twilight distracted. She never expected everything to go smoothly. She expected to be hiccups and holdups. But what she didn't expect was sabotage. Yes, she knew her friends weren't being malicious, but the results were the same. Pinkie Pie got her fancy kitchen while delaying other parts of the castle. Fluttershy unwittingly unleashed the Angel Bunny army and shut down the project. Even Rarity had set them for a failure at the start. The project would be several times easier if they just focused on the essentials. The only one that hadn't caused trouble was Rainbow Dash, and that wasn't for a lack of trying to get her backyard pool. Sorry. Didn't think anyone else would be here. Applejack turned her head, just enough so she could see out from under the brim of her hat. A pony came around a tree to head the secluded picnic table from the rest of the park. The stallion was carrying a lunch, and was starting to back away when Applejack shot up and fixed her hat. Hey, Silvershell! Didn't know you were in town. Oh, Applejack, it's you! Silver stopped retreating and resumed his approach, taking a seat across from the table at the mare. I didn't recognize you, but I guess you can't blame me all too much. All I could see from over there was somebody trying to nap under her hat. He began unpacking his lunch, a simple meal of a sandwich, celery, and a big sweet apple acres apple. So, what are you doing out here? Trying to clear my head. Applejack sank back into her seat, letting her hat cover her eyes again. Maybe it was rude to Silvershell, but she couldn't care less at the moment about decorum. Shill took a small bite of his sandwich, chewed and swallowed. I guess all the work on the palace isn't going so well. That's why I'm in town. I've been helping up at Nightstone Castle with your friend, Pinkie Pie. Boy, I didn't see about a little rarity. Applejack sighed. The mention of Pinkie Pie reminding her exactly why she was trying to clear out of her head. Last one, little scrabber. Shill ate a few more bites of his sandwich, eyes wandering as this conversation withered like a dry plant under the hot sun. I took a bite of his apple, crunched some celery, and managed to find something else to say. So, are you taking a lunch break? I'm eating before I start my shift at the castle. Applejack shook her head, resulting in rolling it back and forth across the table. A single, dry, forced chuckle escaped Shill's mouth before he promptly filled it with another bite of his sandwich. Then he crunched on the celery, and was about to taste that with a bite from his apple. Then paused, turning the pristine, red-skinned fruit in his hoof for a moment. You and your family do really grow great apples. I've been having one of these a day ever since I got here. I can't get enough of them. The topic changing to something other than the palace was enough for Applejack to sit up. She straightened her hat, and even masked a little smile while she watched Shill bite into the apple. Yep, never bites an apple family apple. We put a lot of work in it to make sure of that. We tend the trees, harvest at just the right time, and do all the honest work that it takes to make those apples honestly good. Honest work to make them honestly good. Shill smiled a little as he swallowed. That almost sounds like a marketing slogan the Flim Flam brothers should think of. Good or bad intentions, you have to give those two much credit. They sure know how to sell things. How do you get mixed up with those two in the first place? Applejack asked, as he leaned her head on her hoof. Without a lunch of her own to eat, all she could really do was talk and watch Shill enjoy his.
It's actually a funny story. I've always wanted to be a sales pony, but I never really got the hoof of it. I was fired more times than I cared to count from the different shops because I couldn't manage to make sales. But then Flim and Flam came into town. Other ponies were enthralled by the miracle elixir, but what I saw was a pair of grade A sales ponies. I approached them after their show and asked if they had any openings. They weren't keen on it at first, but then they hired me to be their plant pony. Never heard anything like that before. Shell shrugged. Haven't heard of it either. I think those two may have made the name up to make me feel more important than I was. Still, it somewhat makes sense. I was the pony they were playing in the crowd to help make more sales, though it didn't work as well as we hoped the first few times. I was this close to losing that job. Shell put his hose about an inch apart for emphasis. Well, in the end, I'm glad he didn't. That coin you gave me ended up being real helpful. Applejack said with a little chuckle. Still, what were you doing that got under Flim Flam's fur? From what I remember of those two, a tornado could be blowing through around their heads, and they still be keeping up their routine. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't my fault. They were trying a bit too hard to control what I did. They were telling me which costume to use and how to fake my injuries. They wanted it spot on, and that pressure was making my acting less and less convincing. But then one night, they were too busy making more elixir and telling me to take care of it myself. That's when things turned around. I had the freedom to act the way I was comfortable. After that, picking the best costume and character for the audience became my responsibility. It might contribute music to the show, and the bears trusted me to do it. Even I wanted to try new project costumes. She'll crunch down the last bite of his salary, chuckling instead. Now, thanks to the time I spent with them, I started my own costume shop. A good, honest place a few towns over. I'm real glad to hear that, Shell, Applejack said, a story rolling down her head. For the moment, the pair were silent. Shell was nearing the end of his lunch, and Applejack's frustration had been vented away. It was now just two ponies sitting, while one enjoyed an early lunch. So, what part are you doing for yourself? Applejack cocked an eyebrow. Why on mine? I heard from somebody that Pinkie Pie was making this big kitchen so she could use it to throw some super fun parties. Sound like just the thing she'd do for her part of the palace. None of us really have parts of the palace, Applejack said, chuckling a little at the Nelson. It's Twilight's new home. She's the princess of friendship. But didn't Celestia say something different? I read it in the newspaper. Still paused a moment, eyes wandering before his mind passed to a captured memory. Yeah, Princess Celestia was interviewed about the new palace, and said it was a perfect place for Princess Twilight and her friends. Even had a picture of the throne room, and it had a seat for all 7 of you. Applejack laughed a little at the thought, but then she got quiet. Shell's story and question were swimming and merging together in her mind. Applejack then shook her head, before lifting a hoof to secure her hat on her head. I suppose you got pulled there, Shell. Now, I'd like to run off, but all this talking has helped me get my head on straight.
Applejack, is this really an appropriate time for this?
Verity asked as she, Fluttershy and Rainbow, followed their friend to the castle. Her disappearance earlier that morning had been a major disruption to the work on the palace. Police had sworn Rarity and Fluttershy in the design tent, asking questions they had no answer to. Where were the volunteers supposed to be working? Where was the castle mortar? And where was they installing the plumbing? What smells so delicious? I promise, we'll get right back on track. I just need to settle something with y'all, Applejack said, before making a left turn, arriving back at the palace, where frustration had reached a breaking point earlier that day. The ballroom kitchen, however, was nearly filled to capacity. Every counter space was stacked with plates of cookies and apple fritters. They were easily enough desserts to feed a small army, the amount only increasing. Pinkie Pie was at the oven, training out a pair of cookie sheets, while another half-dozen apple fritters fried up in a pot of hot oil on the stovetop. Rainbow landed, moving over to one of the plates and sniffing the desserts. She couldn't help but lick her lips.
Hey, Pinkie, what's all this for? Rainbow Dash!
Pinkie Pie yelled as she had been caught planning a surprise party. Then her eyes flicked to Applejack before narrowing to dots.
Applejack! Oh no, my super duper apology isn't ready yet. I still have 1,000 more cookies to bake, 12 dozen more fritters to fry before I can make my ultimate I'm sorry apple gift basket. With all this, I think you mean gift wagon,
Verity said.
What exactly are you apologizing for?
She was the one that hijacked the Nazi if the last couple dies,
Applejack said as he tried out the Pinkie Pie, with a quick twist of her hoof. She turned the stove burners off before doing the same to the oven.
Well, I didn't take too kindly to the news when I found out this morning.
That was you? You ruined my lovely sitting room!
Pinkie Pie opened her mouth, but Applejack stepped between her and Rarity, breaking line of sight.
Ruin is a bit of a strong word. And if anything, I'll be the one making things difficult.
How's any of this your fault, Applejack? Fluttershy asked. I mean, it was my animals that caused the mess in the backyard.
I haven't had my head in the right place for this project since day one. All I saw was the job y'all wanted me to do, and all that work that had to be done. But some point will help me realize a few things. Now, this isn't a job, though y'all put your faith on me. Now, I shouldn't be the one buzzing over turning around. All 5 of us should be working together. We should be making decisions together and doing things that get us excited about this project. I mean, look at what Pinkie Pie got done,
Applejack said. Sweeping her hood through the air, she drew attention to the room.
This here is one of the best kisses I've ever seen. She got it done just by taking some ponies off the night shift. Sure, it can't put a wrench in some other things, but the palace wouldn't have this room if she didn't put her heart into it. And that's something else I haven't been thinking about. We all have seats in the throne room. This is going to be Twilight's home, but this palace also represents our friendship. Heck, Twilight will probably be making a fuss right now that we've all been focusing on as her. So you know what we're going to do?
Applejack asked, to which her friends could only shake their heads.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have fun with this and work together, like we should have been from the start. Rarity's going to have her ballroom with this great kissing of Pinkie Pie's to make any delicious treat any boy could ask for.
Rarity began to smile, nodding her head.
I just suppose this is a billions of space, and honestly, between all 6 of us, who's really going to sit in a sitting room long enough to make it worthwhile?
That's the spirit, Applejack said with a firm nod. Fluttershy, we're going to have those palace gardens with room for plenty of nice little critters. But we're also going to have Rainbow Dash's pool.
I mean, seriously, there's a nice lake
over there. What? Really?
Rainbow grabbed Applejack by the shoulders. Look at the mare, dead in the eye.
You're pulling my leg, right? I can actually have the pull? Yep.
Applejack said, chuckling a little at how much he had sounded like her big brother. Rainbow Dash leapt into the air, somersaulting a few times in celebration, to the amusement of her friends below.
What about you, Applejack?
Fluttershy asked.
If we're all getting these things, it would be a shame for you not to add something to the palace.
Honestly, the part I want to do is where Twilight, Spike, and Nix are actually going to live. Those 3 deserve someplace nice and comfortable, a real place to hang their hats. Applejack shrugged her shoulders. And, if I found the time, I wouldn't mind trying to plant a golden apple tree in the garden. I want to see if I can put Celestius to shame.
That all sounds really good, Applejack. But what if you don't get done?
Rarity asked.
Do we really want to go adding things now? What about getting done before Twilight gets back? And how are we going to organize all this?
I think the 6 of us will still need to keep a hold on the reins of this wagon, but a lot of our volunteers are smart ponies. They came here to help, and no matter what their reason. If we break this project into a lot of smaller bits, I believe we can trust all of them ponies to work together and get everything done. Sure, it'll be a lot more hectic, but there'll be more feathers and fur flying than if you dropped a fox in a hen house. Why, I'll imagine Discord will be grinning ear to ear hearing what I'm proposing.
Does it mean ear to ear?
Rarity asked. A smile tickled escaped Applejack's lips.
No, Discord, I know exactly what I said.
Anyway, ponies do their best work when they're going to do what they have a passion for. Some hate painting with crystal mortar, but others like it. Why let those who aren't having fun go outside and help in the garden or help tear down some other wall? It's not like that's the only job that needs doing.
So what do y'all say? Applejack said, extending her hoof. No more boss, Applejack. Now we're working together. And succeed or fail, let's have fun doing it.
The other 4 mares nodded, adding their hooves to Applejack's before all 5 raced them upward in a unified cheer. Applejack then picked up one of the plates of cookies Pinkie Pie had baked, mostly towards the door.
Now come on, y'all. Let's go take these treats to all those hard-working ponies outside. Tell them how things are going to work.
Only if you have 1 apple fritter now, Pinkie Pie said, holding the freshest fritter in her hoof. Because I really am sorry I made you mad.
Oh, Pinkie.
You are so nice. Applejack chuckled, and then like a shark emerging from the water, chucked down the whole fritter in a single bite. The mares began to laugh together, gathering up some of the baked goods in preparation for taking them outside. All the while, No one knows a particular origami pony sticking out Fireside's mane and flittering out to the nearest open window.
Spellnixels!
The dark blue unicorn with a light green mane didn't look up from his desk. A few papers floated by. For several months, he had been maintaining his position at Celestia School for Gifted Unicorns headmaster.
A much better dean than the previous one.
After his run-in with Nix over the Heartswarmings, he had finally been able to get his own life back on track. He was still a few pounds heavier than he once was, and there were perhaps a few wrinkles that had not been there before. Still, things had regained an old normalcy. Perhaps a tad mundane compared to being the leader of a cult, but he wouldn't give it up for anything in the world.
Yes.
Yes, before applying his signature to another form that required it.
I know you're busy, but we've had a small disturbance on campus. 3 fillies got separated from their parents, started crying. Some of the students brought them here to the front office, and we've been trying to get them reunited with their families.
Nexus nodded, giving a small wave with his quill while focusing on his work.
That's very good. Glad to hear the situation was resolved.
Well, it wasn't resolved, sir. The fillies won't tell us their names or anything. They just keep saying they need to talk to you.
Spell Nexus looked up from his desk for the first time, seeing his secretary standing just behind the chairs on the opposite side of his desk.
There, beside her.
I hate when that happens. Were 3 little fillies just saddlebags, waving and smiling.
3 little fillies he recognized all too well.
I see.
He said as he dropped the quill into the inkwell.
Don't worry. I know these fillies and their families. Please give us a moment, and we'll get back on the train to Ponyville.
The secretary nodded, stepping out of the room and pulling the door shut as he left. Spell Nexus then levitated his gaze at Scootaloo, Sweetie Belle, and Apple Bloom, as the 3 fillies made themselves comfortable on the cushions on the opposite side of his desk.
I'm surprised you 3 didn't sneak in here in the brown paper bag I used for lunch.
That was what I thought we should do,
Scootaloo said, seeing Apple Bloom sitting on one of the cushions, while Sweetie Belle sat on the other.
But Sweetie Belle thought this would work better.
Of course, because no pony is just going to ignore 3 coloring fillies.
Spell Nexus surmised.
I don't know. It was so sweet screaming, Apple Bloom said. Trust me, she was doing more than enough screaming for the 3 of us.
Scootaloo nodded before rubbing a huff against one ear.
I think my ears are still ringing.
Spell Nexus chuckled as he folded his hose on top of the desk.
So, what's missing this time, Cutie Mark Crusaders? I don't think there's any pony near that needs rescuing at Celestia School, and all 3 of you are a little young for applying for admittance. And will your families be a bit concerned when they realize you're missing?
We need to talk to Princess Celestia and Princess Luna, Apple Bloom said. It's urgent.
Has something happened in Ponyville?
Nexus asked, a twinge of concern filling his voice. He rose from his desk and took one step to the side.
Are Twilight and her friends in danger? Did something else get out of Tartarus?
No, nothing like that, Scootaloo said. Twilight, Nix, and Spike are being kept busy in the Crystal Empire, while everybody else is working on a new palace.
That sounds very nice,
Spell Nexus said, as he slowly returned to his seat with an arched eyebrow.
That, however, doesn't seem eternally urgent, or something that requires the princess's attention. If Twilight's friends needed the princess's help, I'm sure they would have come and asked for it themselves.
I don't mind the help, but we do.
Apple Bloom said as she opened her saddlebags. She held the flat while Scootaloo removed a book and placed it on Spell Nexus' back. He looked at it for a few moments, then drew it closer so he could properly read the title.
You need help with 101 superior sugar street recipes.
No, we need help with what's on the inside.
Spell Nexus made a nod, though not entirely interested in the crazy scheme being presented to him. He was willing to humor the girls for the time being. He cracked open the cover and was surprised to see the book that was hollow. A somewhat clean rectangle had been cut out of the thick pages inside, and the gap was filled with several small bits and bobs.
What is this?
He asked as he levitated a few items and inspected more closely.
Did you know about Nix's treasure book? Sweetie Belle asked.
No, doesn't ring a bell.
It was a little green book that Nix hollowed out, so he made it just like that one. A secret little treasure box.
Spell Nexus stared at the 3 fillies, his mind tripping back. In the interleaving months, he recalled more clearly that what he had done while blessed by Nightmare Moon's poisonous drive and thirst for revenge. The thought, the memory of a green book, bubbled to the surface. There was one green book he remembered clearly, one he had been so happy to turn over to his queen. The book she had them retrieved from Twilight's library. The book, he had been told, contained dark plans for the future of Equestria. He almost wanted to smile at the thought that Nyx had used him under such false pretenses to secure such a priceless item.
It's a lovely book, girls, but I'm afraid it doesn't explain why you're here.
Nyx's old treasure book got destroyed with the rest of the library,
Skidaloo said, while Spellnexus continued to pick through the contents of the book. He drew out the Red Crusader keeping kazoo, a chuckle on his lips as he took in each item.
We've been making this new one, but something's missing. We need a picture from Twilight's coronation, Sweetbell said.
Well, there were a lot of photos taken that day. Would it be easier to go talk to somebody at the Canterlot newspaper?
Spellnexus asked, began putting them back in order, returning all the items to the interiors piece by piece. Emma Bloom shook her head firmly.
No, it just wasn't any picture. It was a special one. It had Nyx, Twilight, Spike, Prince Armor, Princess Cadence, Twilight's parents, Princess Celestia, Princess Luna, all staying in the same room where the wedding happened. When Nyx showed us the picture, it was the only time we ever seen one like it. Our sisters don't even have that picture.
It must have been just one for the immediate family and the princesses then.
Spellnexus mused as he closed the cover on the book. He smiled, levitating the book back to Apple Bloom's bag as he got up from the desk.
I can't make any promises that you have a copy they can spare. I don't think the princesses mind if we pop over to the castle for a moment. But then it's straight back to Ponyville for year 3. Am I understood?
Yes! Of course. Okay.
Have a pleasant afternoon. Celestia shut the door to a small meeting room, letting a smile from her face as she turned around. Luna was standing up from her seat at the table as well, stretching her legs and wings before shaking her body like a dog, trying to dry out the rain. While they were both tired, Luna looked particularly exhausted as she'd been working her normal sleep schedule. She was up all day, sleep all night, and was barely able to attend any of the feverish nightmares spawned by Tirek.
What's next after this, sister?
Luna asked as she rolled her neck, words carrying her dread of what the answer might be.
The Equestrian Farmers Union wants to have a meeting to express their concerns about the recent attack by Tirek. Just like the Weather Pegasus Union before that, and just like the Seabird Delegation before that.
Celestia moved over to a window, looking outside and feeling the temptation of an early fall breeze. The windows were just big enough, and it seemed Luna had truly wished they could just escape into the sky. That would only cause more headaches down the line.
I do not recall the population of Equestria being so skittish as years ago,
Luna said as she moved up beside Celestia, looking out a neighboring window.
It seems all we've done since T-Rex defeat is reassure all these different groups that he is not a threat that they need to concern themselves with.
It's been an unusually turbulent few years, so I can't blame them for being a concern. Celestia says he watched the comings and goings of Canterlot. Ponies strode the streets and flew the skies. From her view, Equestria was peaceful and happy, as it was supposed to be. Most citizens were reassured by the articles they were printed in the kingdom's newspapers. But there were always some, like these union groups and delegations. They feel like they can't believe what they're being told unless it comes straight out of a princess's mouth. Luna chuckled as he looked over to Celestia.
Then, let me offer my apologies.
For what? Celestia asked.
For the intolerable stream of meetings you undoubtedly endured when I came back from the moon.
Celestia laughed openly, Luna's words striking an odd chord in her mind.
Oh yes, I have particularly clear memories from those days. There was one group from Applewood who wanted to make a movie about the whole thing. They even had a draft of the script they hurriedly typed up on the train ride to Canterlot. Was it any good?
Luna asked as he began heading back to her seat at the meeting table in preparation for the next visitors.
The play performed at Ponyville last year was more accurate, more respectful, and overall more entertaining.
Celestia took a step back to follow Luna's lead and returned to her seat when the door to the meeting room cracked open. Guard poked his head in, short of breath as he had been galloping.
Your Highnesses, I know you are busy, but we could use your assistance in the castle gardens.
Luna rose from the cushions he had only got comfortable with and strode around the table to approach the guard.
What happened?
The guard opened the door further, gave her spectacled brow as he reported.
As you've been informed, the cooks have been reporting some loss of the food from the pantry. This was assumed to be an assault of Vox, but the true culprit was revealed just a few minutes ago. His name is Koro Sensei.
That sounds like good news. Celestia says he came to a stop next to Luna. The pair standing shoulder to shoulder as they listened to the soldier. I assume something happened when this culprit was discovered?
The guard nodded. Yes, and that is why your presence is requested in the gardens. The guard believes we can contain the situation given enough time, but the longer the culprit goes undefeated, the more collateral damage the castle will suffer.
Who exactly is this culprit? Luna asked, a question that left the guard struck silent for a moment. He opened his mouth once more, then made a small popping noise with his lips, as his mind searched for the best way to describe what they were facing. He then looked back to the princesses. This caught somewhere between a frown and a smile.
Your Highnesses, do you recall when Discord gave legs to some brownies at the hot swimming party?
Celestia couldn't deny. It was a sight to behold. Standing in the gardens of Canterlot Castle was a giant brownie creature, roaring and writhing as it dripped pure, melted chocolate from his mouth like saliva. It was the shape of a dragon, but instead of breathing fire, it was capable of spitting a stream of solid milk chocolate. Several guards had already been turned into decadent statues, and amongst the victims were 3 fillies and 1 particular stallion. I didn't imagine our next feeling would be so sweet, Nexus. What's the occasion? Celestia asked, her words ringing with a small chuckle, as he used her magic to free Nexus's head from the chocolate. Are you all right?
Yes, I'm fine. The chocolate isn't even hot.
He answered as he was freed chunk by chunk from the sweet statue prison.
But these 3 certainly seem like magnets for chaos. I'd almost call it a special talent.
No, I don't see 3 kite shields yet.
He-Mark or Slayer's chaos detectors? Evelyn said as she and Skulu and Sweetbell were freed by Luna. Wonder what that kitty mark would look like. Yes, I've heard a few interesting stories about these 3 from Twilight. Celestia said quietly to Nexus, as to not offend the small fillies. She then let her voice return to normal volume as she looked at the brownie dragon. Though, special talent or not, I suppose it is better that they discovered this particular pest before it got much better. Luna, would you like to dispel it, or shall I? Allow me, sister, Luna says. He spread her wings, and called on her magic, a smile on her lips. I'll gladly slay this beast, and revel in the chaos as I do so. With a single beat of her wings, Luna was airborne, shouting at the brownie dragon with what can only be described as a joyful battle cry. Hurrah!
You 2 seem too entirely happy to see us,
Spell Nexus said, as he was freed from the last of the chocolate. Let's just say Luna and I can both appreciate this variety of relatively harmless chaos after the past few days. She says she watched Luna battle with the dragon. She summoned her twin swords and was swooping around the creature while cleaving off near perfect brownie squares of each pass. So, what brings you to this castle? We need a picture, Sleepbell said, with a big grin, before the 3 creators was launched on an elaborate explanation of what had been going on in Ponyville. They told of the castle and renovations, of their efforts to rebuild Nix's treasure book, and how they arrived at the castle. It was an amusing story, and one Celestia gladly listened to. It was a welcome interruption to the schedule of meetings she and Luna had been enduring. With the way Luna was fighting with the brownie dragon, Celestia knew her sister felt the same way. With a spell, they could have cleaned up the mess in under a minute, but Luna was dedicated to slaying the dragon properly, downing it by the blades of her swords and nothing else. So far, she managed to lop off several sizable chunks, but had yet to land a brownie-killing blow. For a walking pile of soft, chocolatey dessert, the dragon was very nimble. I wish Luna and I had been informed of the project sooner. We would have gladly come and joined in the efforts to renovate the palace. She says she wants Luna to slice away the dragon's chocolate horns. Still, at the very least, I know we can assist with your contribution. That was the second of two pictures taken before Princess Twilight made her first public appearance. The first photo was just us 4 princesses. In any case, it'll be simple enough to make a copy of the second photo for you to add to Nix's book. Thanks so much, Princess! All 3 fillies said in unison. No trouble at all. It's the least we can do to thank you for uncovering this little surprise. Celestia motioned to the dragon. I do wonder how it was stealing food from the kitchen at its size. It was really small before we counted it, Skulu said. So maybe you could make it still smaller? Celestia gave a small nod. That would make as much sense as any other explanation for one of Discord's creations. A final roar brought the pony's attention back to the fight, and Luna was wearing a great smile as he landed next to him.
She had the head of the brownie dragon levitating in her magic, while behind her, most of the body had been surgically cut into piles of servable brownie squares. Num!
You have some chocolate in your wing, Luna.
Yes! The confessor creature managed to graze me as I flew, but that was the only blow it was able to land.
Luna levitated the dragon head a little higher. The head seems to be made of a particularly delicious brownie. I was thinking we could carve it up in front of the Griffin delegates next week. Lady Rosie would be castle weakness for brownies, and the whole delegation will certainly be delighted by such a well-shaped sculpture.
That is a marvelous idea, Celestia said, using her magic to take the dragon's head from Luna and hold it out to spell Nexus. If you wouldn't mind, Nexus, please take this to the kitchen with the fillies. Luna and I will help tidy up what's left of the dragon, then join you there.
Yes, your highness,
Spell Nexus said, replacing Celestia's levitation spell of his own. He then held the brownie dragon's head at host's length, but began to head inside with Scootaloo and Applebloom following his wake, sharing about how amazing Luna was for slaying the dragon. It left the two royal sisters smiling as they remained on the balcony. Luna dematerialized her swords and began using magic to remove the chocolate from her wing.
That was a delightful distraction. Remind me to thank Discord next time I see him. Yes, it perhaps could have been better if his little legged brownie hadn't managed to grow to such proportions. Compared to some of his other chaotic calamities, however, this one was most enjoyable. And I believe just about every pony in the castle would be able to take a plate of brownies home this evening. A wonderful boost to morale.
Celestia nodded her head.
Yes, though I imagine some of the guards who became chocolate statues may not be keen to take bits of the beast home to their friends and family.
She called on her magic, managing to levitate one of the perfectly square brown bits from the top of a pile. She brought it close to her mouth, taking a green bite and delighting at the flavor as it danced across her tongue.
How did you get such perfect cuts?
The dragon was falling apart that way. I can only guess that is another aspect granted to the creature by Discord's magic. Luna finished cleaning her wing, folded back against her side, before turning her head to the castle.
Though I suppose with the beast slain, we must be returning to our duties. The next meeting won't attend itself.
That is true, but I argue they aren't our priority at the moment. Celestia tossed down the last bit of brownie morsel. Luna turned to Celestia, arched an eyebrow.
Why that?
Celestia swallowed, then licked her tongue around her mouth, getting the last crumbs of the brownie as she began to walk into the gardens to help expedite the cleanup.
Didn't you hear? Our presence is needed in Ponyville. The new palace is undergoing renovations without a princess to oversee, and this area is a suitable representation of Equestria as a kingdom. In fact, considering you've been working unsupervised for the last few days, it may very well take 2 princesses to correct any mistakes.
Celestia glanced back at Luna, seeing doubt flash into Luna's face, but then her sister's lips busted into an understanding smile.
Of course, sister, and we must not forget the 3 young fillies.
We should escort them home immediately. The families must be worried, and we haven't really a moment to spare, even to tell Kibbitz of our changing schedule.
We'll leave him a note,
Celestia said as her magic began to break apart the remaining body of the dragon.
After all, Kibbitz is a busy stallion as well. I hate to interrupt him just to tell him we're leaving.